Thanks, Kate. Well, happy Mother's Day. I want to add my voice of celebration to the day. It is a great time to celebrate and join in, and I feel that we as a church, it's right that we participate very strongly in the sense of Mother's Day, because do you know we invented Mother's Day? Did you know that? Not EV, not we, but we as the Christian community invented it. The story, there's some roots back further, but the one that we experience at the moment, Mother's Day, began its time in 1908, I think it was the date, but a lady called Anna Jarvis, her mother, both part of a church in America, and her mother, while she was alive, was very committed to serving the things of Christ, and I think in one occasion she was in a kids' ministry and she prayed a prayer, something along the lines that the Lord might raise up people to remember and reflect on and celebrate motherhood. When she died, her daughter Anna eventually convinced, or not in some harsh way, but convinced the church that she was part of in America to put aside one Sunday a year to celebrate the sacrifice that mothers make, and particularly with her mother's passing, she wanted to give thanks for motherhood. And so began Mother's Day as we know it. And her mother's favourite flower was a carnation. Did I just get that right? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm hearing no's. I'm terrified I've already got it wrong. But her favourite flower was the one that you give at Mother's Day, whichever that is. And so that's how it all began. I think pot plants have done a roaring trade this week. We've seen them around our house as well. But it caught on. Anna was horrified at the commercialisation of Mother's Day, but nonetheless, the beauty and goodness of us celebrating mothers is important. It's good that we join in and celebrate. And in that regard, what we've done today, we've decided to not do our normal series. We've been going through the letter of 1 Peter. Come and join us next week as we jump back into that. But I want to spend some time thinking with you about the massively important topic of identity. Identity. Now you might be wondering how we've got from Mother's Day to identity. Well, in fact, I'm guessing you didn't come here thinking, gee, I hope we talk about identity today. But it is a massively connected, relevant topic, the whole question of your identity, because we're doing Mother's Day, a day when we celebrate many women who have their identity in motherhood. You see, you are mothers. And this is particularly important for us because, as Adrian mentioned, Mother's Day is often very painful. And this morning, I just should give you an alert. I'm going to touch on some deeply painful topics today. So just to give you an alert for that, because I want us as a church to be real about these things. And one of the painful things about Mother's Day for many people is not just the fact that there's a loss of mum, and I'm now sitting here without my mum with me, and that's painful, or the loss of a child, and that is painful for many. But there's pain that many experience for another reason. It's the challenge and the grief of infertility. Now, in recent months, I've been spending some time with some of you who have been actually wrestling with the whole question of infertility. And it's a very common thing in our presence. 1 in 6 women will go through the experience of infertility. It's very common. And forgive me for going into this place. It is a touchy topic. But it has been helpful to hear the journey of some of you, the grief and pain. And the grief for many in the process of infertility is the obvious one of not being able to have the child that you long to have. And some of you are sitting in that place right at the moment. Some of you find Mother's Day so difficult you can't come because of that kind of grief. But there's another grief that I've been alert to in the midst of all of that. It's a grief beneath the grief. It's a deeper grief. It's the grief not just of a sense of loss, but a grief around identity. One wonderful woman amongst us said to me, what emerged as I was wrestling with the issue of infertility, not being able to have a child, was the question of who am I? Who am I as a woman? Do you see so much of our lives, many women's lives, is orientated towards the thought that one day they will have a child. The physiology of a woman is very much shaped and driven by that. And there is this kind of expectation that you'll move through the patterns of life. You'll meet a man, you'll get married, you'll spend some time in marriage, and then you'll have a child, and you move through the stages of motherhood and so on. And there's a kind of an expectation that be the case. And when it doesn't happen as you expect, there is that sense of loss, but there is that sense of, well, then who am I as a mother if I can't conceive my own child? Now, adoption's possible, and many of you have pursued the idea of adoption, which many of you want to actually tell us that adoption's a good thing, not just because you're infertile, but because it's a beautiful thing to adopt. And many of you have pursued that path. But nonetheless, there's still this identity question around, who am I as a woman if I can't conceive my own child? Now, here's the thing. If that has been your journey, and it has been for many of us among, if that's been your journey, I don't say this flippantly, but I do want to say there's a blessing in that journey. A painful blessing. Now, how can it be a blessing? I'll tell you the blessing it is. It has forced you to wrestle with deeper questions that many of us have not had to wrestle with, unfortunately. And it's forced you to wrestle with the whole question of who you are. Who are we as people? Now, for some, because that issue of the loss and infertility, it's forced you to ask. But we all should be asking that question. And one of the great challenges for us, and many amongst us who are mums, is that you've never had to confront that issue, but you will one day. And so today, let's wrestle with it. Who are you as a woman, as a man, as a person? Who are we? What is our real identity? Should it be enough to think of ourselves as I'm a mum and that's who I am? Should it be sufficient to think I'm a dad and that's who I am? What should be the way we think about ourselves as humans? It should be everyone's question. Now, you might be thinking, if you're older particularly, this is one of those modern obsessions with identity. Everyone keeps talking about it today. Let's just get on and be ourselves and forget all that stuff. No. It is an important question. It's an important question for your stability. It's an important question for your health. It's an important question for the meaning in life that you have. Do you realise that we as humans are the one creature on the planet that wrestles with identity? And it's right that we do, because we're the one creature that's self-reflective. You think about this. We of all creatures on the planet are the one being that is able to reflect on the fact that we are reflecting. Now, is that it? We're the ones that can look out through our heads into the world around us and go, who is that person doing the looking? That's unique for humans. You don't see a group of koalas lined up on a tree wondering who they are, sort of sitting there together, looking at the sunset, thinking, what's the purpose of life? But humans do that, not perhaps on a tree, on a branch, but we sit around wondering who we are. And it's because of the way we're made. There's something unique about the humankind. So it's necessarily a question that humans ask, because we can be self-reflective. We can look back at ourselves in the mirror. But it's important for us to ask too, for our stability, our health, and our meaning in life. Stability. The better you get a sense of who you really are, the more you're able to move through life with stability. Through all the chances and changings of this fleeting world, I'm able to have a stable sense of myself. As I move into different circumstances, I am still who I am. Now, that's important for your health, because the more you have a stable sense of yourself, the more you're able to actually know the truth about who you are and live in light of it. So here's one of the beautiful things, and you see this in people's discussions about identity. I discovered who I was, and finally I can be the real me, and being the real me is meant to find health. Now, many people are saying they've kind of found the real me, but they haven't really, and so they're not living healthy lives at all. But it is a truth that when you know the real you, who you really are, you can live in light of it. You can live in the grain, with the grain of your life, instead of against the grain, in a way that constantly grates. When you know who you are, you can live the life that you are. And it brings health to you, and it also brings meaning. There is a really powerful piece, which you haven't got time to dig into today so much, but there's a sense in which knowing who you are, that you live in light of it, brings meaning into your life. All of these features means it does matter that you know something of who you are and your identity. So who are you, besides being a mum? Who are you? What would happen if your ability to be a mum was taken away, or your kids were taken away, which, well, one day they will be. They'll move on. They'll move out of the house. You'll stop being dominated by that sense of who you are as a mum. Well, who will you be then? Who will you be then? Who are you? But men, who are you? Well, you're the child of a mum. Is that who you are? The passage that Kate read for us is so good. It's a wonderful passage. If you don't know Psalm 139, it's one of those passages that you ought to go through carefully and repeatedly. Again, we haven't got time to go through it in great detail, but it's the reflection of a man, the man David, the king of Israel in the ancient times. It's a reflection of King David about his life under God, about his life before God. And it's a beautiful reflection. It's a reflection on how closely entwined God is with him. So verse 1, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. The big foundational piece, I am known by you. You're not distant and absent, you're engaged in my life and you know me. You know when I sit, when I rise, perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my goings, my lying downs. Before verse 4, a word is on my tongue. You, Lord, know it completely. I'm hemmed in before and behind. Your knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty to attain. Where can I go? I can't go from you because you're everywhere. You're all consuming. And then those most beautiful words, verse 13, about the life of David in the womb. For you created my inmost being, knit me together in my mother's womb. So close was your relationship and engagement with me, says David, that when I was in the womb, you were at work in me. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth, in the womb. Your eyes saw my unformed body, all the days ordained for me, written in my book before. David reflects on the richness of the power of God, who God is, that he is everywhere, that he is engaged in every aspect of life, that he knows him from the womb. And the consequences of these reflections for David is stability. It's a deep knowledge of who he is in God's universe. He is under God, he is known by God, he is hemmed in by God. God is everything and all to him and for him. Now let me offer some of my reflections on this psalm. So there's sort of a big, quick overview, but I've got 4 reflections for you that come out of this psalm for us about the question of identity, who we are, and particularly as it relates to motherhood. The first reflection I offer is this. The big, most important parts of your identity, who you really are given to you from outside. They're given to you from outside. David's reflection on what's true about his life comes to him not by observing stuff inside him, but observing of what's true outside of him, the reality of God who exists beyond him. He forms his sense of self by looking at what has been given to him, what is true outside of him, not by looking at how he feels about things. Now, I start here because this is a profoundly important recalibration to embrace. Now, if you're over 50, I don't know, pick a date, you will have noticed something's happened in the last bunch of years around us, yes? If you're under 40, you're kind of going, what are you talking about? Well, there's a massive change in the way we think about identity that's occurred in our society. It's been on the run for a long time, but it's come to its fullness in the last bunch of decades. And what it is this. In ancient times, the way a person formed their identity was by looking outside of themselves to see what was given to them by their circumstances of life, and those pieces formed who they are. And they sought then to live in light of that reality. But what's happened today is a complete reverse. The way people today form identity is by looking within and thinking about how they feel about stuff. And on the basis of how they feel, form a sense of how they'd like to think about themselves. There's a massive shift in our society in recent decades. And it's brought all kinds of very strange and extraordinary experiences that have occurred. But that's something of its root. A shift by finding identity from looking outside, what's given to me in my circumstances and realities of life, into now looking within. Now, part of what's driven this is a modern obsession with freedom, or a kind of freedom that's unfettered. What's driving this is a desire to have a life where I can be truly free. And the way people perceive their freedom is I'm no longer going to be bound by what has been given to me and what circumstances I've been put into. I'm not going to be bound by that anymore. I'm going to make my own sense of myself completely untethered and free to be whoever I want to be. Now, did you not have that speech at year 12 when you finished high school? You can be whoever you want to be. And what do you want to do? You want to stand up and say, well, hang on. No, you can't. It's not reality. But it's very inspiring because it taps into the idea of our sense of freedom and the sense that we've only got one life and we're going to make the most of it. And so we're not going to be constrained by it. We're going to be whoever we want to be. And it's a beautiful idea. It's just that it keeps butting up against reality. And so we look inside. What feelings do I have? What tastes? What emotions? Now, what this does for us, though, today is it forms a very unhealthy sense of self. Because we can't be whoever we want to be, there are fixed things about us that are necessarily part of who we are. And knowing that matters because it stabilises you. It grounds you. And it gives you the power to live in light of the truth. And at core, it's a blessing. At core, it's a blessing. Because let me give you the second. So the first thing, the biggest pieces about who you are given to you from outside. And coming to terms with that is critical for living a life of stability. But it's a blessing that you know this. Let me give you the second point I want to make. What comes from outside in one particular thing is a sense of your value and worth as a human. What comes from outside is a sense of value and worth for you as a human. You see, the overriding mood of this psalm is the mood of David being full of gratitude and full of wonder that God, the creator of the universe, is engaged in his life in intimate ways. That God has created in him a sense of value. So while in the womb, he was the object of God's perfect and close attention. Verse 14, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully and wonderfully made. David was able to say this is true of himself, but it's true of every human. Job chapter 10 talks about us being fashioned, all of us being fashioned and made in the womb by God. And then you go all the way back to the first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, which says we've all been created in the image of God. These things are reflections on a reality that's been given to us. Do you see the power of this? That if you're sitting here today and you're a human, hands up if you aren't, but if you're sitting here today and you're a human, know this about yourself, that's been given to you. You haven't made it up yourself. It's been given to you from outside of you. You have been fashioned and made by God, fearfully and wonderfully made in the womb. Fearfully and wonderfully made. Knit together by him. Which therefore means your life is valuable and precious, with great dignity and worth. And this value worth is possessed by every human as a gift given to you by God. You didn't get it by earning it. You didn't get it by proving your worth. We are image bearers of God created by him. We are image bearers. We are unique of all the creatures. We are special of all the creatures. Now that doesn't mean we use and abuse, but we are special of all creatures. And so you are in yourself, by virtue of God's gracious engagement with your life, you are special. You are not just a piece of meat. You're not just a bundle of cells. And this is true of you without you having to work to prove it. Now, it's Mother's Day, so let me apply this to mums. I love doing this, just to say to you, to the women amongst us, it's true of mums and true of all women. And I think, ironically, we need to say this today. Because did you know there's a crisis amongst women, young women, about a sense of value and worth? 3 generations of the feminist movement, and we've got a culture of womanhood who struggles to have a sense of value and worth. So let me give it to you. Women amongst us, You are valuable and precious not because you're like a man, but because you're a woman. You don't have to earn it, you don't have to work for it, you don't have to prove it, you just are. Because God in his kindness and mercy made you as a fellow heir, as an image bearer. He formed you in the womb wonderfully and fearfully. Let me apply some of this further. This is a uniquely Christian thought, did you know? This is why Western civilization, as opposed to any other civilization that's existed on the planet, Western civilization, which was shaped by Christian thinking, Western civilization is the one civilization, unique of all civilizations, that has a thing called human rights, where we believe in a Western society of the inalienable human rights. Now, where does that come from? If we are just creatures like every other creature, why should human have right? Well, it's come from the Christian biblical thought that we are created in the image of God, unique of all creatures, and so we of all creatures have a particular special status and place and worth and value, and humans have rights like no other creature have rights. Let me apply this further. This value extends back into the womb. It extends back into the womb. I want you to notice in this psalm the issue of what's been called continuity. So verse 1, you have searched me, Lord. He talks about, David the adult talks about himself, the me, this person who is David. But then he'll go in verse 13, you created you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully, wonderfully made. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. This same David identifies himself back into the womb at the very beginnings of his being formed as the same David. See the continuity issue? The one in the womb is the person, David, before he was even born. This issue of continuity is important. This is why 10,000 people marched on Parliament House this week. Were you aware of that? That in our New South Wales Parliament there was there's been a debate around new legislation that's been brought concerning applying abortion laws completely across the medical profession in a way that no conscience would be allowed. Now, this is not going to be a morning on abortion, so I know you've not come prepared for this, and I think it's unfair to land it on you, but I do want to say a couple of comments. The reason so many marched on Parliament House this week is found in this passage. It's the continuity argument. It's the fact that the value a human has as an adult is the same value that an infant in the womb, a fetus in the womb, has because it's the same human. There's a continuity. In the womb, there's not a moment when, after conception, that bundle of cells becomes a human. From the moment of conception, it is a human. Separate, distinct from the mother. Not a growth in the mother, but actually its own being with its own DNA, its own identity, continuous, in continuity with the adult who will come. It's the one human, the one person from the beginning, the one adult who will walk and talk that we value and have rights assigned to is the same human who was in the womb. And so, just as we value every human outside the womb, we ought to value the unborn human because it's a member of our human race. Now, the implications of this are massive towards the unborn. And again, I don't want to go into the details. We have talked about this in other contexts. You can chase it up if you want further information. I'm very happy to talk to you further, but now is perhaps not the time to dig into it much more. But this is why so many marched. Because of the value of every human, all the way back into the womb. Let me touch on a further implication of this, which is quite delicate, but I think there's value in us bringing it to the surface. This is why there's a special grief for a woman, and it's a particular grief for a woman and the man, the husband, the father, but this is why there's a special grief for a woman who experiences a miscarriage or the loss of an infant in the womb before birth. 20 weeks, 25 weeks, it doesn't matter. Any miscarriage, any stillbirth is a child yet to be born, and to lose her or him is the loss of a child. And that is deeply painful. Deeply painful. Have you felt that grief? Many of you have. And what I want to say to you this morning is that if you've felt that grief, it's right that you have. Because it's not a bundle of cells. It's a child who you have lost. And so to feel that grief, to own that grief, to live in that grief is an appropriate thing to do. I do want to offer you comfort, as I've offered many of you in different contexts. I think there is a very real promise in the Scriptures that the Lord receives into himself all those who have died prior to birth. Your child is with him by the merits of Christ. Touchy, isn't it? Deep and real. So the first point I wanted to make this morning is that our sense of who we are comes from outside of us. We don't make it up. The second thing I wanted to say was that what comes out from outside of us is a sense of worth and value as humans, all the way back into the womb. You are valuable and precious. And when you build your sense of self, your identity, you do it in the context of knowing you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And hence the third point. What is given to us from outside that shapes and orders the deepest sense of who we are is that we are created. We are created. We are not accidents. We're created intentionally and purposefully by the Creator. Verse 13, you created me. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days of dawn were written in the book. How precious to me are your thoughts. How vast the sum of them. What the author David does is he uses two ancient images, the image of the potter and the weaver. And he uses the image of the potter, God who is the potter who fashions your very being in the womb. And the image of God as the weaver who knits together all the details of your being and your frame and your existence in the womb. You are created by God. You are not an accident. We did not just appear. The events of formation from conception to birth to adulthood were not the product of random chance or mere unguided forces, biologically driven. Every human life is a miracle of God who intentionally brought you to existence. Isn't that wonderful? Who intentionally created you and gave you life and knit you together and formed every aspect of you. God who did this for you in his love and grace and kindness. Every life is a miracle, and I dare suggest that every mother who has had a child born to them senses the reality of this. Do you know, it's easy to sit in a lecture hall and discuss the existence of God and wonder if God is really there. But in the birthing suite, when the baby finally emerges, not necessarily through the pain of labour, but when the baby finally emerges and is handed to you, the thought that this infant is just an accident of random forces is very far from your mind. This thing is a child, fearfully and wonderfully made. It's a miracle of existence that every child is born. Now, science has helped us here. I don't know if this helps you, but I read various of these things and I find this. Did you know when a child is, when at very conception, we're talking one cell, then conception. But eventually in adulthood, we have 30 million cells that make up a human body. One cell, 30 million. What happens between 1 and 30 million? A whole massive number, a series of divisions. There's 45 of them, I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. Please come and talk to me later. But I understand there are 45 divisions of cells that occur to get from one to... And did you know that 43 of them happen in the womb? The massive creative energy that occurs from conception to birth is incredible. And all the code for what that adult will be is there in that cell as they divide. How did that happen? I mean, go back further. How did life emerge from non-life? How did conscious, self-reflective life emerge from unconscious cells? How did that happen? And at that point you go, look, the debates are meaningless because I've seen an infant born and there must be more to life than just matter. And how did we end up with a kind of human being who is capable of transcendent thought, self-reflective thought, and a sense of an existence bigger and beyond us? How did that happen? These are all miracles. See, my first point is that all the great things about who you are come to you from outside. You don't make them up from inside. They all come to you from outside. The second point is that one of the first most important things that comes to us from outside is how precious and valuable you are as an image bearer of God. And the third point I wanted to make is the deepest thing about who you are that's given to you from outside is that you are created. You're a created being. You're not an accident. You are the precious creative work of an attentive God, of God, the Creator, who cares for you, who has hovered over your existence and life, who has brought you in the womb to be all that you are, who has knit you together. You are fearfully and wonderfully made by a God who cares. And so identity. Who are you? Who are you as a human? Well, you're many things. This is the great complex thing about identity. You're not just one thing, you're many things. There's many things that are given to you from outside that are fixed, that you can't change. That your parents, your mum, who you are is very much defined by the mother you had, for better or worse. How did your mother discipline you? What was your circumstance? The reality is that is part of your identity. Your history, your heritage, your ethnicity, your sex, your biology, these things shape who you are. They're all part of the story that makes up who you are. And to pretend that they're of no account is to live against the grain of life. Wisdom and health demands that a person embrace the true truths about themselves and live in light of them. To do otherwise will bring instability and foolishness. The modern belief that a person can find greater freedom by throwing off what's been given from outside and form their own sense of identity is destroying people. It's a social experiment that's not working, and it's causing great harm to our community. Health and wholeness is learning to live with what has been given, not making up what you'd like to be. So who are you? You're many things. You're the child of a mother. You're the child of a particular mum. You're the child of a father. You're the child of an intact marriage or a broken marriage. These are parts of who you... This is your story. This is who you are. You're born into a certain country. You're born into another country and emigrate. These are all part of who you are. You have a fixed history that shapes your identity. You've got certain capacities that are given to you that are different to other people. This is part of who you are. But the big one is that you're a created being, not an accident. You're created by God, who is not distant, aloof, who is searching you, who knows you, who is close to you, who knit you together. And God, who not only created you, but did all of that because he wants you to know him. He wants you to know him and have a relationship with him. You know, there are many things from this great mix of who you are, the great diversity of stuff that makes up who you are, that you need to kind of give some thought to. What do you do with all of this great mix of things? What order do you give to it? Do you see some of them as more important than other pieces? Yes, you do. You must You must recognise that some are more preeminent, might more have bigger implications, need to be given more regard to. That's right. There's some things that have happened to you in your life that you ought not let define you. You know that little language that we use in recent times, don't let that define you? That's helpful language. If you have been in a family which has been harsh and brutal, if you have suffered abuse, that is a piece of your story. But don't let it be the lens through which you see all of your story. You don't need to let it define you. You get to order which parts of you that have been given to you that are the lens through which you see your life, which are the most important things, which are the great things. And let me say a couple of thoughts here. Do not let your job be the lens through which you define your life. Who are you? Many years ago now, Kathy and I lived at Bronte Beach, and we, for various reasons, were down there doing ministry and ministry training. Behind Bronte Beach, if you know the area, there's a massively old cemetery, Waverley Cemetery. Has anyone been down there? Well, being the romantic that I am, I'd take Kathy for a walk, and I'd take her for a walk through the graveyard, and she loved it. And because the view is spectacular. This is the most extraordinary views you've ever seen in Sydney, right? And anyway, one day we were walking through the graveyard. We did it often. One day we walked through the graveyard, and I stumbled upon a gravestone that said this. I can't remember the name or the date, and you'll see why in a moment. John Smith died 1852, long centuries ago. And here was why I don't remember all those details, because underneath that were these words. He was an accountant. Now, my problem was, I've never worked out how that was meant to be read. Was it, he was an accountant? Note of celebration. Or was it meant to be, he was an accountant? I never worked out which is which. Which should it be? Here's the thing, it wouldn't matter what was said. He was an astronaut. She was a doctor. He was a world explorer. Wouldn't matter what was said. That does not define your life. She was a mum is a really powerful piece of who you are. But if you let that be the lens through which you see your life, you will build your life on a very unstable foundation. Because your experience of motherhood will shift and change. One day the kids will move out, and if that's who you are, if that's the whole lens through which you see your life, you will lose your sense of self. Where is that foundation upon which you can look and get the lens to make sense of the big picture of who I am that's unchanging, unbreakable, that's stable and solid? What is that? What is that rock upon which you can build your life of identity, the lens through which you define yourself? Well, that given piece of who you are that will not change, that cannot change, that defines everything about you, and you know what that is? That you're created by God, and that He sees and sustains you and knows you. That you are made for Him, to have a relationship with Him. And that will never change. It is the rock upon which you can build your life. Now, I want to talk to two different groups of people to finish. First one is this. If you're amongst us today and you do not know and have a relationship with this God, what I want to say to you is this. That there is nothing else that defines who you are as much as that, and wisdom is about coming to terms with who you really are and living in light of it. You know the experience of realising that you're the child of a mum, and that given how much your mum has done for you, you sense the obligation that's owed to your mum. Not out of cool, cold, but out of warm-hearted affection. You know you owe your mum for all she's given you. Well, if I could say to you, as one who has been created by God, who gave you the family, who gave you the mum, who gave you every loving experience you've ever had, the God who stands behind all of that calls on you to recognise the obligation you owe Him, which is bigger and vaster than any relationship that you'll have here. Who you are is found there. And if you live without regard to that great truth about who you are, you'll be living against the grain, and you'll find when one day you stand before Him, you have got nothing. But the Lord God has given you another day, one more day, to see this truth about who you are, that you were fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, to know and love him as he knows you. Come back to him. Now how? Well, come along to life this Tuesday. Come along and find out about this God who wants you to know him. It is about coming to know the Lord Jesus and what he's done for us, his death and resurrection. There's grace to be had and life to be had there. If you do not know this God, there's the word to you. That's the biggest thing about who you are is not your job, it's not your family, it's not your it's God who has made you. And you owe your very existence to him. Come back to him. But to those of you who do know God as your God, can I say, he is the lens through which you see all of life. He is the one upon whom you build your whole life. Not your job, not even your motherhood, not even being the child of, not even your ethnic, not even your sexual identity. These things are far less significant than that you are made by God, known by God, made to glorify him and enjoy him forever. So that whatever happens in your life, whatever things are taken from you and given to you, that one rock remains. Who am I? Who am I in the midst of it all? Created by God, known by God, loved by God, the God who sent his son to die for me, a child of God. This is the lens through which you see all of life, which will bring great stability to you. Let's pray that this Mother's Day, this might be a great gift that you come to find, seeing who you are in proper measure through the lens of who God has made you to be. Let me pray for us. Well, Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the extraordinary gift that you have given us of life, that you have, in your kindness and mercy, created us and knit us together in our mother's wombs, that you hem us in, that you hover, that you are close to us. Please help us appreciate the beauty of this, that we might live lives in light of who we truly are and know you, therefore, as our Father, our eternal Father, the one who will take us home to be with you one day. We thank you for these great gifts and the stability it brings. In Jesus' name, amen.